I'm recording. All right, so we're going to start a new topic today of Python reading JSON, but I'll ask if there are any questions first. So I forgot to put a due date on this. It'll be due in a week if you're sort of trying to keep up with the schedule and not fall behind. So nobody said they had a question. Okay. All right. So first program, I have and that's in my downloads. I'll open up my Visual Studio Code. Okay, so I'm going to have a Python program that's going to read a JSON file. So the JSON file is a notation that originates from JavaScript. So the JS in JSON, JSON, the JS is JavaScript, but it's become a sort of a universal sort of data format. And the format is based on, I'm going to have to sort of go back and forth between the JavaScript language and the Python language. So in JavaScript, curly bracket indicates an object. In Python, we're going to call it a dictionary. So it's like the data part of an object without any methods. So and so the curly bracket indicates the start of, in JavaScript, object, in Python, dictionary. And then a dictionary is a set of key value pairs. So here then I have and they are separated by a colon. So here's my first key to my first key value pair. And so the key is lettuce. And then after the colon should be the value. But lettuce is not a simple thing. Lettuce is, again, a difference in language. In JavaScript, we would call this an array. In Python, we're going to call it a list. So lettuce is a list. And it's a list of what? So a list is like an array, a set of things. And it is a list of dictionaries. So this JSON is a dictionary, using now the Python language, a dictionary. It has a key value pair. Here's the key, lettuce. But the value of lettuce happens to be a list of other dictionaries. And that dictionary has a key value pair of name, and then that is a key, and then the value is iceberg. And then there's another one, another dictionary, and the name is romaine, and then the name is spring mix. Okay, so then I have these little dictionaries forming a list. That list is the value of the key lettuce of the overall dictionary. So that's fun. All right. And then I have a second to my overall dictionary. I have a second property, a second key value pair called fixings. Fixings is also a list of little dictionaries, and then I have dressings. So that's the overall. So in this notation, this means either object or dictionary. The colon is separating key and a value. Here's a key, here's a value. And the square bracket means array in JavaScript or list in Python. Okay. So that's the format of JSON. Now we want to get our Python to read JSON. There's a module for that. So we just import the JSON module. I'm going to make sure my terminal is in the right location. So I'm going to use the operating system module. And then I'm just going to have this, make sure that the __ file, which is the file I'm running, get rid of the file name, just grab its directory, and then change the operating directory to that directory. So I'm making sure my terminal is located where my file is. And then I'm going to open the JSON to read it. So this is me, we read the other day. Now we're reading specifically a JSON file. And then I'm parsing the JSON file. So at the end, the last time when we were reading a comma separated values file. And then it was our job to say, here are what the delimiters are and so on. And then we had to say like, oh, this thing was the name of an item, and this thing was the price of an item. With JSON, there's more information in the file itself. It's more sort of self-describing. So there's less work in parsing it. So instead of all our looping through and looking for delimiters or something like that, we can just use that JSON library that we imported and say, hey, this is JSON, unpack it all for me. So I'm doing that in 2 steps. I'm reading the file and then parsing it. That can be crunched down into 1 step where we just say, this S in loads says is for string. So I've read in a string and then I'm parsing it. But we can combine that. There's a version of load which is for files, and then I can just directly parse the file. So this could be collapsed, but right now I'm doing it in 2 steps. And I think all day I do it in 2 steps, but there is a 1-step version. Okay, so I've read and parsed the JSON, and then the rest of it's just using that parsed JSON. So these lines are too long, my font is too big. Okay, I'm printing out the type of the thing loaded in from JSON is salad. So salad, I'm showing you what salad is. And then I'm showing you, I'm printing out the type of salad, and then I'm printing out salad. And then salad has this thing called lettuce, and I'm telling you what type of thing lettuce is, and then typing out the lettuce. And then here, lettuce is, if you recall, a list, and so then I can show you the first thing in the list, and the type of the first thing in the list, and then the first thing in the list. And then that thing itself was a dictionary and has key value pairs, so I can specifically say, go to my salad, which is my JSON, go to the lettuce, which is a list, grab the first thing in the list, and that is a dictionary, and then get me the value of the key that is name. And so I'm going to tell you the type, and then I'm going to tell you the thing. So repeatedly, I'm going to tell you the type of the thing and then the thing at these different levels of JSON. So if you run that, gotta make this font bigger. It tells me that the first thing is a dictionary. I started off with a curly bracket in JSON, calls that a dictionary. And then here's the dictionary, the whole 9 yards, without any of the weird spacing. The weird spacing is just to make the file look nice, but it's not really the part of JSON. Then I asked what salad lettuce was, and they're telling me it's a list, and here's the list. with the square brackets at the beginning and the end. And then I asked what type of thing is salad lettuce 0, and it's telling me it's the first thing in that list, and the first thing in that list was a dictionary, and here it is. It's a dictionary with a single key value pair, name iceberg. And then finally I get down to the lowest level in my JSON, and it's salad lettuce 0 name, and that is finally a string, and it's iceberg. So that is the structure of JSON. Okay. I have to assume that you've not seen JSON before. So that's what this guy does. He reads the JSON, parses the JSON, and I'm showing you the sort of types and the structure of JSON. So how to get the thing and know what kind of a thing it is. Question. Okay. One problem that comes up in JSON is that the same information can be in slightly different JSON files, and that throws people off. So I'm going to show you these two files. These two programs are going to have the same, almost the same data in a JSON file, but one time it's going to start with a curly. So the first thing you're going to encounter is a dictionary, and the second thing is going to start with a square. So the first thing you're going to encounter is a list, and JSON can start either way. Maybe I'll open them both up so we can sort of make some, go back and forth and make some comparison. Oh. And palette, is that what I want? Lost my Explorer, that's what I lost. Okay, now I'm back. So curly version. Here's the curly version. So it starts off with a curly bracket. So I'm starting off with, this is movies. At the time, whenever I made this file, it was the top 10 movies according, or maybe 12 movies, I don't know, according to the Internet Movie Database, IMDb. Okay. And it's information about movies. This one is starting with a curly. So it is starting with a dictionary. And then I'm going to have another one where I start off with the list. Okay. So here, let's go back to the curly. So in the curly, it starts off with a curly, and so it starts off with a dictionary, and then there is a key called IMDb top. That is the key, and then its value is this list. So if that's how it starts, if you're starting with a curly, then I'm doing, I'm doing the importing the JSON, importing the OS, moving myself to the right location. I'm opening that file that starts with a curly. I'm parsing the JSON, so that part's all the same. And now here I am. I'm going to loop over the movies and just display the information. I'm going to display the rank, the movie title, and the year. And movie info is a dictionary. So I can't loop over movie info. Movie info is a dictionary. And so I'm going to, so I don't loop over movie info, I loop over movie info IMDb top, because the IMDb top property of movie info, that's an array. This is an array. So when it started with the curly, I had just a big set of information that I wanted to loop over, but I don't loop over in a simple for loop. We'll show something later, but in a normal sort of for loop, I'm not going to just loop over a dictionary. So I find the thing in there that's a list within the dictionary, which is this IMDb top. What is this? So there are my movies. Shawshank Redemption, yada, 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 down to Star Wars. Okay. So that's that. All right. So what does the one, then I have the other one, which starts with the array. So basically, this guy started with an object, had a key value pair, and then the array started. This one starts right with the array. So if I just started straight out with the array, I import JSON, I import the operating system, I set my path, I read my file, I parse my file. And now movies is a list, so I can loop over it. And this is going to show me the same information. The same information was in the file, it was just the file was slightly arranged. So the first time, what I got out of JSON was not an array. I had to find the array within it. And the second time, what I got out of JSON started with a square bracket, so it was an array. So I can jump right into my for loop and loop over it. Is that okay? Just want to, I won't apologize if I give you an example that was one way and then you have to do something that was the other way. I'm not going to apologize. I've shown you both ways. Clear it out. So there's not too much here to look at. All right. So I showed you the structure of JSON. I showed you two very similar JSONs, but starting slightly differently. I'm going to show you the keys. So before we assume that we knew the keys, and this is going to assume that we don't know the keys. And so we're looking at a JSON, we're not quite familiar with what's in there, and we're also going to show you some of the keys as well. That's what I want to do. That's what I want to do. So this is the starts with a square bracket one. But before I said what was the rank and what was the movie title and what was the year, and I spit them out. But now I'm going to pretend I don't know what the keys are, and I would like to sort of loop through and to have you tell me what the keys are. Import the JSON, the operating system, set the file, read the file, parse the file. Okay. Here I am looping through the movies. So the thing started with a square bracket. So it starts with a regular old list. And then so a movie is something in the list, an item in my list. And now, and what is a movie? Here's a movie. It has all these properties. And I can think of these key value pairs as like a list of key value pairs. If I tell the system to think about it that way, it will do it. And that is where I use this word items. So I take a movie, one more time, a movie is this stuff. if I say items after a movie, it's going to turn it into a list of what we call a tuple. So it's going to turn this thing into a list of tuples, and then the first thing in the tuple is the key, and the second thing in the tuple is the value, and then I can print those two things out. So I'm not saying I know that there's a movie title and I know there's a movie year. I'm sort of saying in this one, what are the keys? I'm also saying what are the values, but I'm asking it what its keys are. And so here's that last movie, the 12th movie, Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. That was its title. Here's its rank. Here's its year. There's its director. Yada, yada, yada. Okay. So that's if you don't know what the keys are. So you can ask for the keys if you don't know the keys. So if you know the keys, then you can just use them like we did before. If you don't know the keys, you can get them from the JSON. Obviously knows them. It was part of the JSON, so you can get the keys out of it. So usually you know the keys and you want the values, but there are situations where you might not know the keys, and this is a way to get the keys. Questions? Okay, I want to read JSON from the web. So this time I'm sending you one file, the PY file, because the other file that is going to be read is on the web. Okay. So I import the JSON. I don't import the operating system stuff. I'm usually playing that operating system stuff to make sure that I know where the file that I'm reading is. And this time I say I don't care. What I care about is knowing how to make a URL request. There's more than one library to do this. I had somebody in the fall, she liked a different library than, not in the fall, this is the fall. I had somebody in the spring, she liked a different library than me. I'd rather use the libraries that I use because it makes my life easier, but you know, I'll live. So this is for going out to a web page and bringing stuff down. So I say what the URL is, and then here's my library request. I'm opening the URL, I'm reading it, and I'm decoding it. Not necessarily decoding it as JSON, that comes here. So this is now the equivalent of reading the file, except the file's out on the internet. And then here is us parsing it as JSON, and then I'm going back to just printing out the stuff. I went back to the curly bracket starting file. I can tell that here. And there's the information. Okay. So going out to the web to read JSON. In this world where people share things with you, they don't want to give you, they want to give you access to their data, but they don't want to give you access to their database. If they give you access to their database, that's insecure. But they want you to have their data, they want you to know about their products and yada, 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 so you can do stuff with their products and sort of help them sell their products in this overly sharing world. And so the way they do that is they make, they put their information into a JSON format. They make an API. They make an application platform interface or whatever the hell it is, something like that. Programming, application programming interface. I don't know, something. They provide a way that produces JSON. So they give you access to their information in a JSON format. If they're really old, it might be XML, but it's usually JSON these days. And so it's important that you know how to read JSON off the web. Okay. And the only difference was here. Otherwise, this was like our first program, or maybe our second program. Our first program was about salads. So this was the same as our second program, except we're not reading it locally, we're reading it off the internet. Questions? All right. So now I'm going to add to the information. I'm going to process the information in some way and add to it. I have lists and I have dictionaries. So in the first one, I have some list and I'm going to add an element to the list. In the second one, I have a dictionary. I actually have a list of dictionaries, but I'm going to add a new key value pair to the dictionary. Okay. So again, our basic structure of JSON, we have objects, we have arrays, if I'm talking the JavaScript language, and I want to be able to sort of add to either. Add to an object, I make a new key value pair. Add to a list, just add an element to the list or an element to the array. And what are you going to do? You're going to do the opposite. You're going to delete. Okay, here we go. Add. I'm going to read some JSON and I'm going to add something to it. Okay. Here's employees. There's the JSON. There's the, so here I started with the curly bracket. I have my list is employees, and then my employees have a first name and a last name: John Doe, Anna Smith, Peter Jones. In my Python, I import the JSON, I import the operating system because I'm back to a local file. I read the file, I JSON parse the file, and then I'm going to add in a new element to the list. So I prompt the user, say, give me a new first name, give me a new last name. I'm making an empty dictionary. I'm assigning that first name property to what they entered first and the last name property to what they entered last. And then I have a new employee, which I'm going to append to my list of employees. I'm going to print out, I'm going to show you the new employee added, and then I'm going to write a file. So with open new _JSON.json W for writing, I'm going to write it. I called it F2, and then I'm going to write. We're used to reading, now I'm writing, and I'm going to dump out the JSON of employee information, and I'm going to have an indenting scheme where I use 2 spaces. So let's have a look. Okay, so it's asking me for the new employee's first name. I'm going to say Terry. And the new employee's last name, I'll say Garcia. Okay, here I have printed out first name John, last name Doe, that was already there. First name Anna, last name Smith, that was already there. First name Peter, last name Jones, that was already there. And first name Terry, last name Garcia. That's what I just typed. That's the new one that I just added. It should also be in a file I just created. Employee add, there's my new JSON that I just wrote. And here's the 2 spaces of an indent, 1, 2. That was my indenting of 2. You could have chosen 3, 4, 6, whatever you wanted. And here's Terry Garcia, who was not there before. Here's employees. Oh, I open in Visual Studio. Oh my God, it's gonna take forever. Visual Studio code is wonderful. Visual Studio itself sucks. So here's the original JSON file without Terry Garcia, and then I added Terry Garcia. That was so I'm adding an element to my list. Okay. So I'm adding to the information. So I got some JSON information and then I added to it and printed it out and made my own new JSON file. All right. I am going to what? I am going to this time add a key value pair. So I'm going to make up a username from that first name and that last name. I'm going to construct a username and add that as a new key value pair. Here's so the username. So here's the JSON, the same JSON as before, my 3 employees. Here is this code for adding usernames and adding it to the JSON. So import the JSON, import the operating system, read the JSON, parse the JSON. I'm looping through my employees. I started with a curly bracket, so I can't loop over emplo info. I have to loop over emplo info employees because that's the one that's the list. And I'm taking their last name and putting it in lowercase. I'm adding to that their first name in lowercase, and I'm grabbing just the first letter. So I'm making it, if it were me, it would be Blum T. I'm printing out that username, and then I'm making a new in code here. I'm adding to my employee, I am adding a new key value pair where username is the key, and then whatever I just constructed, Blum T, is the value. And that will all now belong to employee info. So when I print out employee info, it will now include a key value pair corresponding, giving me the username of each of my users. So there across the screen and font you can't read. Here are my employees. First name John, last name Doe, username Doe J. First name Anna, last name Smith, username Smith A, etc. So I've added. Now I don't have Terry Garcia because that was a separate program where I added an employee. This is, I'm going back to the original file, which only had 3 employees, but I've added a key value pair of the username. All right. Now I want to show you something about deleting, and then it's your turn. So I'm going to pop things. So within the JSON, I have a list. I'm going to pop something out of a list, which means take it out of the list. But when you pop things out of a list, somewhere in the middle of a list, the indices of the list adjust. If I had, and then that can interfere with a situation. So I want to show you a way to get things out of a list without having that problem. And there are other approaches to this problem. So I'm just showing you one possible. Okay. I have 2 dictionaries that contain, 2 lists of dictionaries. My list and my list 2 are the same. Just I'm going to do each one, I want to do something different to and then compare. And so I have a dictionary in here which has property A and property B. And so A is 1 and B is 1, A is 1 and B is 2, A is 2 and B is 3, A is 2 and B is 4, A is 2, B is 5, A is 3, B is 6. Okay. So I have a list of dictionaries. And what I want to do is get rid of all the ones where A is 2. Okay. So if I'm popping takes something out of an array, and it works based on the index. So here's a way where I was counting up. This is the way you can tell by this is the bad way. This is the way that doesn't work. I'm looping through the items in my list. I want the I so I can use pop. And I'm asking if the item's A property is equal to 2, then I want to pop it out of my list. That's approach number 1. And that's the one that's going to fail. I'll show you it failing, and then we'll say why it fails. And then here's the version that works. And there are other ways to do this, but this is, I have to show you a way that works. And if you want to find another, that's up to you. I'm going to go over the range so I can find the length of my list 2. Subtract 1. That's the first index, or that's the highest index. I can go from the highest index to -1. When you make a list, you don't get to the second thing. So I'm starting at the highest index. I'm going down to 0, including, but my range always goes 1 more, so it goes to -1. And I'm stepping by -1. So I'm going from my highest index down to 0 by -1. But my ranges are the second item, the second number in my range is not included. So I have to go to -1 instead of going to 0. Anyway, okay. I'm just going to print out the I so that I can convince you that this is me counting down. So I think I had 6 things, so it's going to go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. And then I'm going to say my list I, A. So I'm going to find the ith item in my list, and I'm going to look at its A property, and if that's 2, then I'm going to use the position to pop it out. And then I'm going to print my list, and that one's going to be right. Okay. So here is my result. Can't see it very well. Here's the result of the first one. A1, B1, A1, B2, A2, B4. We're supposed to be getting rid of the A2s, and there's still one there. And then A3, B6. So there was one in there that we should have gotten rid of that we didn't. Down here in the second case, we did A1, B1, A1, B2, A3, B6. So we got rid of what we were supposed to get rid of there, all the A's equaling 2. So what happens when you pop something is the counting adjusts. So I was at, here was 0, I didn't have to do anything. Here was 1, I didn't have to do anything. Here was 2, and I popped it. And now this becomes 2. But I just carry on in my loop, and so I don't sort of see this one because I think I've dealt with 2, and this is the new 2. So you could count up if you counted yourself, if you incremented your counter yourself, and then when you pop something, don't increment your counter. That's the way if you want to count up. but another way to do it is to count down. If when you pop, your indices adjust, but the indices adjust above you. And we've already dealt with all the stuff above me. So if the indices adjust above me, I don't care, because I only care about what's the only thing that I have to worry about, and whether I need to pop it or not, is below me. So this works. This doesn't work. You could make this work. You could do even other things. You have to, anyway, find some version of eliminating things from a list. And so now we're up to finally what you have to do. And just a combination of all these things. So I give you a website. So you're going to read JSON from a website. Here's the JSON at that website. Starts with a square bracket. That's a good hint. So you're going to go read this JSON. You're going to loop through the posts. These are posts of something, some user. No, I lost it. User ID is one, ID is one. I guess that's the ID of the post. And here's the title of the post. And here's the body of the post. And so we're going to read through these posts, but I don't like user ID. I don't like the person with user ID 5. They were writing stuff on their posts that wasn't true, so I want to get rid of their posts. And so I'm making my own new JSON where all the posts of user 5 have been eliminated. So I've shown you all the pieces. You put them together. I'm done. Any questions for the recording? Stop recording.